So once I understood the power of positioning flights and the power of transferable currencies, that really opened my eyes, because before I was building steadily all my points in American and for a time all my points in United. And I didn't understand that that wasn't the best use of my points and the best use of my spend. And then when I realized the power of my spend as a mom, you are usually the keeper of the purse of the family. I'm the one who's getting 4x on groceries now instead of nothing. And so unlocking my everyday purchasing power really opened my eyes to what I could accumulate points-wise instead of just purchasing portals.
Hey there, Points people! You just heard a clip from Kasha McLeod, a student in the Points Accelerator program. Kasha has traveled to more than 30 countries and briefly lived in New Zealand and Switzerland growing up. Like many parents dealing with school schedules, Kasha isn't flexible with dates or even locations. So in this episode, expect to hear about strategies if you are planning around school schedules for your family trips, Kasha's redemption for a $16,000 Europe trip for her family, how she's planning to book Tahiti on points, and so much more. And if you are looking to maximize your points so you can travel like Kasha, we have a free live training coming up at geobreezetravel.com/webinar. We're covering how to optimize your points, and I only do these free trainings a couple of times a year. Also, they are not recorded. So if you miss it, you miss out. Again, you can sign up at geobreezetravel.com/webinar. And now, on with the show. Hey Kasha, welcome to the GeoBreeze Travel Podcast.
Thanks, Julia.
I'm excited to have you here and to talk about your points journey. You have accomplished so much since joining our program. I'm so proud of all of the cool trips that you have gotten to plan. But before we jump into all of that, tell us a little bit about you and your background, and how did you get into the wonderful world of points and miles?
Well, I've always loved traveling since I was little. Basically, besides moving to different countries, my family just camped. And it was always my dream. I'd stop at travel agencies, get the brochures, and I wanted to stay in the nice hotels, and I wanted to fly the fancy flights. But for a while, I thought it was out of reach because I have my own family. I have a family of 4 to plan for. So it's really hard sometimes, unless you have the correct strategies in place, to be able to get all 4 people on a business class flight to a beautiful hotel somewhere.
Yeah, for everyone like me who doesn't have kids, I don't think we realize just how many extra filters you have to put onto your search criteria, how many options make it unavailable. Because walk us through some of those extra challenges that you have: school schedules, number of points needed when some people can't earn their points. What are some other ones?
Exactly. I think that one of the struggles is if you don't know exactly where you want to go about 2 years in advance, it becomes extremely hard. That's what one of the things I learned from your classes is that if you cannot be flexible on your dates, if you need to take 4 people with you, then you need to start planning far, far in advance and just put those dreams down on paper. That was one of the best things I learned from your class, because then you can establish the best path forward. But previously, I would just kind of establish piles of points without a plan. And if you want to go to Tahiti, there's certain points you should be building. If you want to go to Paris, there's another pile you should be building. And I need to get a big pile. And I need to look at what are the convertible currencies that can go to that airline that I'm aiming for, and to kind of do your research in advance. Like our flights to Tahiti, I realized I wanted to fly business class. I thought Alaska would be the perfect airline to be shooting for. But then I realized by checking and checking and checking, by the time those business class seats got released to Alaska, they were gone. It was Qantas that I had to be looking for. So then I had to build my Amex points to be able to get those seats when they first hit the market. So planning is a secret to success if you can't be flexible on where you're going or when you're going.
For sure. A lot of families have specific school dates, but they're like, I'll just go wherever. But yeah, if you want to go somewhere, especially Tahiti or Asia Pacific, man, it is so much tougher versus like, we'll just get to the continent of Europe.
Yeah. And one of the strategies I employ is I have my budget set of this is how much I'm going to spend on travel. So I don't try and spend as zero. I say, this is my budget, because I can't be flexible on other things. So if I can fly business class for the same price as what I was going to pay for economy, great. My budget's going to stretch the way it's going to stretch. So sometimes I'm willing to pay those higher British Airways fees because they fly directly from where I want to go to where I want to go. And I'm willing to spend my travel budget. I'm not aiming to spend nothing. I'm just aiming to do the best trip possible.
Absolutely. So you have a family of 4. Can I ask, how old are your kids?
I have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old, and they've both been traveling since they were less than 1 year old internationally.
All right. In the before days with points and miles, how were you doing this? Just all cash flights, or when did you start getting into points and miles?
Like I regret so my points choices were so poor. I did the spend the point percent looking for the exact flight. I think of how many points I wasted before probably the pandemic is when I started following you and a few other people. And I started going, wait a minute, I've been doing this all wrong. And I started just really getting strategic in which credit cards I opened. And I also followed your advice about sometimes you want to buy the points that you want to take the flight you want to take. Like I said before, my goal isn't zero cost, but if I can buy the flight, the exact flight I want for $1,500 worth of points, great, perfect. I'm willing to pay that price. So I'm not a purist. I'm a rational actor, I would say, in the points and miles game.
That is the way to do it. So many people are focused so much on how do I get my cost to zero? How do I shrink myself to the smallest possible option? Where if instead you do what you're doing and say, okay, I have this much of a budget, given that points and miles exist, how do I 5x my travel or 10x my travel? If I have a couple $1,000s that we would normally be spending for camping or something anyway, maybe we use points and miles to stretch that into a $20,000 family trip, which is completely doable to 10x it like that.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes you're going to the cheaper location and booking an Airbnb that's cheaper, but you flew in style on points. Great. Same amount of money. It's that same, however many $1,000 summer vacation budget, but just made amazing because of points and miles. Yeah. The first time I booked a real, I would say real redemption, we were going to from San Diego to Athens. And I found out the idea of repositioning flights. So we found flights from Chicago to Athens in business class. So I booked those tickets. When we got to Chicago, there was a horrible layover in London, like an 8-hour layover. I went to the first class lounge and the gate agent, I said, if you could just shrink this layover for me, I would appreciate it. I know you're gonna have to put me in economy for the last section. I don't care. That's fine with me. This is so exciting for me just to be in here. I would be happy with whatever you can do. So she says, oh, just leave your passports. I'll figure it out. I didn't realize that she had booked us all into first class on British Airways from Chicago. She didn't say a word to London. And so when we got on the plane, we just turned towards the business class seats and they're like, oh no, you're up here. Our family of 4. I couldn't believe it. So that was our first real points redemption. And I don't know if we'll ever top it because it was really just the kindness of the gate agent that put us in that amazing spot.
Tell us a little bit about how you had booked the business class redemption on that. So if people were like, okay, the first class one may never happen because it's just pure luck, but we make our own luck. And so you wouldn't be in the situation if you hadn't at least booked the business class flights. Tell us about your approach there.
I was doing points.me at that point. Now I do seats.aero more, but I was looking for specific dates and points.me is pretty good for specific dates. And I found them through American Airlines. It was paying the higher taxes and fees because it was British, but it was, I think, 57,000 points each and probably about $500 in fees each. But that got us all the way to Athens from Chicago, which is great. And it ended up being part of the way in first class, which was even better. And then when we got to Heathrow, we had still a good layover. We went to the arrivals lounge and I didn't realize that you could have a bubble bath cabana there if you have a first class ticket. And so I love a bath. So that was amazing.
How long of a layover would you suggest having where you want at least this much time in order to do a bubble bath experience?
I would say at least 4 hours in Heathrow. Heathrow can be challenging. I found. So yes, I would say minimum of 4 hours in Heathrow.
All right. Because, yeah, especially if you're switching between different terminals and then like you want to enjoy this experience. You don't want like, okay, in, out, tub, done, like just to say you did. I guess some people do that, but you want to enjoy it.
You want to enjoy it. Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely.
Take me back to when you had all sorts of different points and miles. What did you have? What were you working with? How big were the 20 different piles? And how many of them are still there versus how many have you been able to be like, okay, I figured out how to use these?
Well, since that first experience, my husband is 6'4", and he really didn't believe in this hobby. But after that, he's like, let's go. I think this is a great idea. So I've been able to employ a player too, which I hadn't before. I wasn't sitting on a huge piles of points, honestly. I had enough American miles to book the round trip tickets, so probably close to 400,000 American miles, but that's not huge in this game. But it exhausted my American Airlines pile for that trip. I had a good amount of probably 200,000 Marriott points that I used for a Marriott stay in Rome in that trip. We stayed at a darling, just boutique place in Greece. So that wasn't points at all, but it was amazing. And then we stayed at the Andaz in London. So I used like my high points. I opened a Sapphire Preferred. I had opened the expensive Marriott one, and where it had like a 200,000+ offer points that pot. And so I just kind of spent all those points for this amazing trip. And then after that, now that I have player two, he opened some of the Barclays cards for American Airlines, the Hawaiian card on Barclays as well. And I did the same. So we're really kind of focusing on Alaska because we're West Coast based, and American kind of in the one world space. And obviously Chase points, he opened a Chase card and stuff, which we used for our trip to Japan. And we've booked cash flights there because there's direct flight from our home airline. But then now that my kids are older, I have to book 2 hotel rooms. But I was able to do our whole 9 days in Japan, only paying for 2 nights hotel on points. So that made it a lot more affordable for us.
Walk us through the timeline a little bit of when you got started to when you discovered points and miles, when you got a whole bunch of shiny card syndrome, when you were like,
Oh,
okay, we should get organized, we should book Japan, we should book Athens. What's kind of the year or the timeline on each of
so
these?
I'd say the pandemic, which I'm sure is true of a lot of people. And I'm a nurse. And so I was like just locked down, but dreaming. And that's when I started going online and finding you and other resources that really opened my eyes. And I wouldn't say I went crazy on cards. I probably opened 2 or 3 cards in the pandemic, but there was an amazing deal through Hyatt for healthcare workers where you just put in a code as a thank you. And sometimes it worked and sometimes I didn't. And I was just playing with it. And I saw the Ondas in Costa Rica, it applied, but there was a glitch and it applied to every category of room. It's just supposed to be for the base level room. And I had just been screwing around and putting my birthday date and looking at different hotels. And so that was like 2021. So like a full year, and things were starting to open up again. And so I booked the presidential suite for $60 a night for 4 nights. And it was a 2-bedroom suite. So it accommodate my whole family. And it went through and they took my money. And I was like, woohoo. And then they sent me the email saying like, oh, we're so sorry. That was a mistake. We can offer you a suite, but not the presidential suite. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I send a picture of myself in like the PPE. And I'm like, it is my birthday. And I'm bringing my whole family, so the suite won't accommodate the 4 of us. If I have 2 suites and free breakfast, that would be a wonderful accommodation. And they accepted that. So my family is like, yes, this is great. That wasn't a points redemption, but once that success started, I was like, this is great. We can keep going from here. So sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart.
But also to ask for what you want, because it doesn't hurt to ask where you're like, could I maybe get 2 suites since you're canceling my room? Like just sending a nice email, and it sounds like you were very courteous about it and they were happy to comply. So that's so great that you thought to ask. A lot of people don't even think to ask for these
I
things.
wouldn't have, but my stepdad, he's like the OG of points and miles. And so he's like a globalist. He's like executive platinum. And so he's just like, gosh, he's like, you don't accept the first offer here. Like, be courteous, be kind, but send this email back. And he kind of coached me through this. And he's kind of my points mentor in the background. But it's fun because now I can show him little things too. Like they recently moved to Vegas and I'm like, Joe, you've got to look at this Rio thing because you're a globalist. And he's like, good idea. So it's fun to be able to reciprocate a little bit of the knowledge for him now.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people where there's maybe one person in their family where it's a parent or even a child sometimes where they're very good at points and miles. People are like, I don't think I need like extra help, or like, how much more advanced can it really get? What was it that made you decide, oh, I should seek out extra help and sign up for a program instead of just using what's readily available on internet, on Instagram and blogs, YouTube, because there's so much content out there?
So much content to a certain point. But I think for anything, if you want to become expert or level up, it's always good to have a mentor or a teacher or somebody who is going to take you through more than 30 seconds of content. Or even a podcast. Following your podcast was definitely, I've learned so much. Even the one Become Travel Rich you put out just the other day, because I'm thinking of going down Alaska wormhole as well. So I was like, oh, perfect. When I saw that promo come up, I'm like, I'm going to be tuning in. But I think when I wanted to really take that next step and become a little better and to really make strides in this, I thought I need to just get more educated. just about like anything else I want to become expert in life. I just think read a book, go to class, follow somebody who's doing it. You don't have to learn it all from scratch.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many things where pretty much anything you can just learn on the internet these days, playing piano, cooking, fitness, everything. But it makes such a difference just having somebody tell you, okay, here's the exact recipe that you should follow. And then you get results so much faster.
Hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of your results? Like with the Japan trip you've booked, the Athens trip you've booked, if you were to put a sticker price on each of these, what was the retail value of some of the flights and hotels that you were able to get on points?
Well, the first class tickets were probably $13,000 a piece, and probably more like $5,000 a piece because I inevitably am traveling at high season for everywhere. The hotel, because we had to go at spring break, we were going during cherry blossom season in Japan. All the hotels were about $700 a night or $800 a night. We stayed at the Hyatt House Shibuya back when it was a Category 4 hotel. So that was amazing. I was even able to use some of the free night certificates. And then we stayed at the Hyatt Regency Kyoto, which a lot of people either go to the Park Hyatt, but I have to be a little more frugal in my points. So we had a great stay at the Park Hyatt Kyoto. It was beautiful. So, and I think it was $800 a night at that time because it was the height of the tourist season. So I could not afford to book 2 nights, definitely for 2 rooms. Those prices would not be happening. So that was really an amazing experience for our family.
So in total, you said the first class flights were like $13,000 each, a round
Yeah.
trip or one way?
One way.
Okay.
But we only went first class one way. So, and then the way back, we didn't actually, I booked first class tickets both ways. The way back, I had booked, and here's another thing that not everyone would do, but I do sometimes because my kids are older. I let my children sit in premium economy and I will be in first class sometimes. That's another way to make the point stretch a little further because my kids are very well traveled. They're good kids, and I know they're going to be fine on their own.
So all 4 of you flew first class on the way there. So that's probably
Yeah.
like 50 grand on the way back, 25 grand for you and your husband. The premium economy tickets were probably worth like 2 grand each. So
Yes. Yeah.
we'll say another 5 grand there. So how did your math of how much you saved or like the retail value that you've gotten on points? It sounds like it's probably over 6 figures at this point once you include the other trips and hotels as well.
Oh yeah, I would definitely say so. Yeah, especially with our upcoming trip to Tahiti, the total cash fare of the tickets I bought was about 16,000, and I'm paid 300,000 points, about 350,000 points, and about $300 in fees. So that's another huge savings.
What's the resort that you're staying at in Tahiti?
Well, we're gonna probably sail a little bit. Our family likes to sail. And then I'm looking at the Acor on Moorea because some of those rogue miles that you've been talking about, those transfer very nicely over to Accor. And when Built had their big transfer bonus to Accor, I moved points over there. So I'm going to be booking the Accor property on Moorea.
Yes, the Accor program. This is one I need to delve into more. Everyone at Built is like, oh my God, it's like the best deal. There's so many good points redemptions that are really unique. Like there's a safari one in there that Richard Kerr was telling me about where it includes the safari. And because everybody knows about the JW Masai Mara, that one's constantly booked. But the Fairmont that includes the safari is not always booked. So I need to look into a couple of the Accor hotels. I hear there's some sweet, sweet spots there.
And I'm looking at next summer going to Europe. I was looking at the I Prefer because City transfers for 1 city point to 4 Prefer points. And some of the hotels in London are only 50,000 preferred points a night. And London is hard to find often for a good deal on points. So that's if you transfer from City to I Prefer, that's 12,500 points per night for a London's hotel, very nice hotels in London. And I'm like, sign me up. I booked a few of those for our next summer. Yeah. So
everybody's always so obsessed with Hyatt and like maybe Marriott, IHG, Hilton, but you're getting into some of the deeper ones where Choice Hotels is another one where City transfers at a 1 to 2 rate. And we got an excellent deal in Oslo by booking through the Ascend collection of the Choice points. So you're getting into the good stuff. Like
I'm
the next
trying.
level stuff.
I'm watching you, Julia. I'm learning.
There's more to life than Hyatt. We all love Hyatt, but there's more to points and miles than just that. How are you replenishing your points? You've got a family of 4. Your oldest one's not quite old enough to get credit cards and get their own sign-up bonuses yet. How are you affording all of these on points?
Well, as I said, I'm probably focusing more on Alaska next year because I booked my Qantas reward flight before realizing I can credit that back to my Alaska to try and get Alaska status. And I'm also flying a BA award flight. So I'm really focused on Alaska. So they had a points promo sale right now. One of my kids was targeted for the 110%. So I used their account. I bought the max I could buy. So that's over 200,000 points. Because I just got the Atmos Summit card, I can take all my family's Alaska points. So just over the years, one of my sons had accumulated 60,000 points in his, and just naturally, and my other son as well, 60,000. Now I've added 200,000. So I'm just going to pull all their points for my next possible award booking. I've got my eyes set on South Africa. So we'll see how that will play out. I'm thinking it could be very interesting once Alaska goes directly to London. And if you can do the mixed award bookings, you could get to London and then London to Cape Town or Johannesburg with British Airways. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out in the next year, but I'm kind of hedging my bets towards Alaska. And I opened a bunch of new cards this year. This year, I definitely went all in on the card strategy. So definitely over the 524 at this point, but I was able to replenish and I just use a lot of shopping portals. Any way I can stack points, I do it. It's Betty who you had on for Become Travel Rich. Betsy. Yes. When she talked about the florist, I was like, oh, my sister's birthday coming up. And she loves the Henry and David. So I did that code. I got 25X, put it on my husband's venture, got another 2 points. So always trying to figure out how to do that.
I love that. I saw on some business podcasts once upon a time, they were like, the sign that you're going to succeed is as soon as you intake information, you try to implement it. So I love that for you where you're like, oh, 1-800-Flowers, I should try that. Versus there's so many people out there who are like, oh, points and miles. Maybe I'd like to try that one day. But the number of people on Instagram who do the call to action, like send me the free course, send me the intro call link, send me the award search request link, but don't even download the free resources where they're like, oh, I'm just kind of shopping around and like one day I want to learn this, but you're trying to collect all this information that's never applied, makes it so much harder to get anything done with points and miles. It's kind of like buying a whole bunch of cookbooks, but then never opening them and never trying to cook. I'm like, what are you going to do with all of this knowledge without the will to apply it? So I love that you are applying everything that you learn, and your uptake is so fast where you're like, I learn anything, I'm going to try the thing and see if it works. And that's how you become very successful in this game.
One of my tricks, and it's an organic trick that I've just kind of learned, is when I go to a hotel, I've booked like a basic room because I'm on points and miles, but I love a bathtub and they're disappearing from the basic rooms. So when I check in, I just slightly say like, I really love a bath. Is there a room category available that has a bath? And they'll either say they can free upgrade me to it, or it's a fee to upgrade, but then it becomes my choice. But it's usually a very nice room. Usually it's kind of at the suite level. And sometimes I do my research and look ahead of time what room levels have a bathtub, because I feel like if you're asking a specific request like that, if you're not asking for just a general upgrade, but a specific request, they are more likely to fulfill that request if they can.
Yes, that is another pro level tip is don't just be like, you got any upgrades available? I'm globalist. Like, don't do that, everyone, please. You sound entitled if you do that. But yes, if you're like, I would really love a bathtub, or you research some aspect of the suite that you actually want where you're like, I'm really into this artist and I saw there was like a room that might have this painting in it. Could I get that room? Knowing that it's the presidential suite or something, where you've done your research on the painting, like that's next level 3D chess.
Well, I mean, I really do love a bath. So yeah, it works often. And I don't mind if I'm getting the room for free, paying $50 a night to upgrade to a suite, because I know that's where the bathtub is, in the suite. Like I said, I'm not going for zero. I'm going for the best I can afford in staying in my budget.
Yes. Going for that stretch ratio of, okay, here's my budget and then let's stretch it as far as we can. That's how I like to do it too. I also like to stay within like 10x, maybe like 5 to 15x of my budget, because otherwise if I try to really, really minimize my out-of-pocket spend, sometimes then I'm just taking really inconvenient flights or something. So I like what you're optimizing for.
Yeah.
Cool. So as we kind of wrap up here, you have a lot of, I would say, the lifestyle demographics where people complain, oh, this makes it so much harder. I have 2 kids. I have a full-time job. We have to do positioning flights. We have specific dates that we can travel. What's your advice for people who have a lot of the same challenges where you're like, I see you, and yeah, there's ways around this?
Well, positioning flights did open my eyes completely to a new world of possibilities, because I am kind of out of a more regional airport. And so if you look at flight deals or points deals from my airport, there's not many at all. And so once I understood the power of positioning flights and the power of transferable currencies, that really opened my eyes, because before I was building steadily all my points in American and for a time, all my points in United. And I didn't understand that that wasn't the best use of my points and the best use of my spend. And then when I realized the power of my spend as a mom, you are usually the keeper of the purse of the family. I'm the one who's getting 4x on groceries now instead of nothing. And so unlocking my everyday purchasing power really opened my eyes to what I could accumulate points wise instead of just purchasing portals, doing the correct spend on the correct card, all of these, and not being afraid to open cards because I was kind of brought up in a household where you didn't accrue any debt and I associated credit cards with debt, even though I always paid off my balances. I just was a one card girl for so many years. And Bank of America loved me for it, but they weren't going to do me any favors. They were not looking to help me out until I kind of helped myself out.
Yeah, everybody help yourself out and implement what you learn. I think that's the biggest takeaway here as well is not only did you seek out the knowledge, but you really implemented it. So I am so proud of you and
Thank you.
everything that you've accomplished. So is the Tahiti trip the next trip that you're taking?
That is the next trip we're taking. Yep.
I'm looking forward to hearing about it in our school community once you've taken the trip. But thank you again so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much, Julia. I've learned so much. I appreciate you.